Frank Cohn's story begins as a young Jewish child growing up under the shadow of Nazi Germany. By the age of 6, after witnessing the violence and hatred that swept through his community, he understood a bitter truth, that the Nazis were the enemy. He would escape Europe with his family, arriving in the United States just in time to avoid the horrors that would engulf those left behind. From a young refugee who escaped Nazi Germany to a soldier on Europe's battlefields, Frank confronted the chaos of war head-on, interrogating prisoners of war, hunting enemy infiltrators across Belgium and Germany, and enduring the fear, tension and courage that defined the conflict. In one unforgettable moment, he came face to face with Prince August Wilhelm, the son of Kaiser Wilhelm II, now a 2-star general in the Waffen-SS. This is the story of courage, survival, and the remarkable journey of a young Jewish soldier confronting history itself and living to tell the tale. Frank Cohn was born in Breslau, a thriving city in what was then southwestern Germany, known for its trade, culture and long history. After the war, the city passed out of German control and became part of Poland, now officially known by its Polish name, Wrocław. By the age of 6, Frank had already learned a harsh truth, that the Nazis were the enemy. He discovered this when his uncle was brutally killed by German stormtroopers in the eastern city of Chemnitz, a violent warning of what awaited Jewish families under Nazi rule. Anti-Jewish intimidation soon spread to Frank's own neighbourhood, reaching even his family's sporting goods store.
Nazi stormtroopers were demonstrating in front of the store, with signs saying that the Jews are disaster and don't buy from Jews.
The message was clear and the danger immediate. Recognising the peril, Frank's father acted without hesitation. He sold the store as quickly as possible, understanding that staying would only lead to disaster. With the threat escalating, Frank's mother swiftly took control of the family's fate. She meticulously arranged their escape from Germany, securing train tickets to Berlin and planning their onward journey. With only one suitcase and a small amount of money, she orchestrated a careful plan, slipping the family out of their apartment before dawn, navigating train stations and saying quiet, uncertain goodbyes to relatives who could not flee.
We snuck out of the apartment at 5 in the morning. We got on a train to Berlin, where she said goodbye to her father.
Tragically, her father would later be killed in a concentration camp, while her older sister and her family managed to escape to Australia, a reunion she would never see. Frank and his family arrived safely in the United States on the 30th of October 1938. Just 10 days later, on November 9th, Kristallnacht, the night of broken glass, erupted across Germany. This carefully planned pogrom was ignited by a Polish Jewish teenager who shot a member of the German embassy in Paris, giving the Nazis a pretext to unleash violence. Jewish stores were destroyed, synagogues burned, and Jewish men were arrested. Jewish congregations were forced to pay for the damages caused by their oppressors. Though Frank was far from Germany, the events confirmed the deadly fate they had narrowly escaped and the urgency of the life his mother had fought to secure. Frank Cohn grew up in the United States, adjusting to a new life far from the dangers he had narrowly escaped. But the shadows of war were never far behind. By the time he was 16, global conflict reached American shores with the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor.
I really didn't know any stressful moments because my mother didn't tell me. But when somebody came running by and said the Japanese just bombed Pearl Harbor, nobody knew what Pearl Harbor was.
The news hit like a thunderclap, and he quickly realised the world he now lived in would never be the same. Though initially just a boy, he felt a stirring purpose.
I was pretty heavy about being in war because I knew England had a lot of trouble. Now that the United States was in there, Germany was going to get beaten.
As the conflict escalated, Frank sought ways to contribute despite his youth. Though too young to serve in official capacities, he volunteered as an air raid warden messenger, eager to help the war effort in any way possible. When he turned 18 in August 1944, Frank's time to serve officially had arrived. Drafted in September, he was sent to New Jersey Reception Center, beginning his first real encounter with military life. Before he was to receive orders for basic training, he spent 4 days at Fort Dix's, waking up at 4 a.m. and working in the kitchen until 8 p.m. each day. Exhausted and frustrated, he told himself, this may be the army, but he's going to try to avoid this job as much as possible. During his stay at Fort Dix's, Frank realized that something was amiss. On the 4th day, after all the other recruits had received their orders for basic training, he discovered he had not. Concerned, he asked the sergeant why he was being left behind. The response shocked him. Because he had entered the United States on a visitor's visa, had never been naturalized as a US citizen, and was born in Germany, he was legally classified as an enemy alien. As a result, the FBI needed to investigate him before he could continue with training. Frank worried that he might be permanently stuck as a kitchen porter. Quick thinking and confidence saved him. Frank reminded the sergeant of his previous military experience in high school and college, explaining that he understood close order drills, tactics, and military history. The sergeant was impressed and promoted him to acting corporal, a gadget, allowing him to train and lead new recruits.
You can act like a corporal with the new recruits, but don't get it into your head that you are a corporal.
One of Frank's first responsibilities was marching recruits to view 2 films, Why We Fight, which explained the purpose of the war, and a practical training film on preventing venereal diseases. Frank jokingly noted,
I saw that movie more times than anybody else in the United States Army, but that was a record I wasn't particularly proud of.
After 3 months, the FBI investigation cleared him. He finally received orders and was sent to Fort Benning, Georgia, for basic training. 2 weeks later, Frank was sworn in as a US citizen in the Middle District Court of Georgia in Columbus. He remembered the moment vividly. He patted himself on the back because there was no one else there to witness it.
I was just gleeful. I was no longer an enemy alien. I was a United States citizen like everybody else. I'm proud to this day.
In late 1944, Frank was sent to Europe and briefly assigned to the 87th Infantry Division. But he wasn't there long. Not because of the Germans, but because of an accident in training. During a standard gas drill, the men were ordered to put on their masks. Normally, instructors used harmless smoke or tear gas to simulate a chemical attack, but this time a fatal mistake was made. One of the instructors picked up the wrong grenade. Not a smoke canister, not a training aid. It was white phosphorus, one of the most destructive incendiaries in the Army's arsenal. When it detonated, burning fragments sprayed the area. White phosphorus clings to skin and keeps burning. Soldiers scrambled, confused, thinking at first it was part of the exercise, until the pain set in. Frank was badly burned, his ears, wrist and hands seared by the blast. He spent a month in hospital recovering. When he finally returned, he was weaker, unable to keep up on long marches.
I wasn't one of their best soldiers after that. The accident left me scarred and too weak to keep up.
The army reassigned him. Instead of infantry, Frank was sent overseas, to England, then France and Belgium. There, his German fluency was discovered. He was pulled from the line and sent to Paris for a short intelligence course. Soon after, he was placed on a prisoner of war interrogation team, IPW Team 66, a small unit made up of 2 officers, 2 interpreters including Frank, a sergeant in charge and a driver. The officers and interpreters wore US insignia, but no rank. Frank tore the private first class stripes off his sleeve and looked just like the officers.
That meant I could order the driver around. He thought I outranked him. Truth was, I didn't, but if he'd known, he never would have listened to me.
A week before the Battle of the Bulge, Frank's unit was given a new job. Not to fight in the front lines, but to hunt for German infiltrators. These were no ordinary soldiers. They were commandos, fluent in English, dressed in stolen American uniforms, driving captured jeeps, and slipping behind enemy lines to spread chaos. Their orders: sabotage, spread chaos, and make the Americans paranoid of their own. The work was miserable. The team drove for hours through sleet and freezing rain. By regulation, the Jeep windshield had to be folded down because you couldn't fire through glass. The wind tore at their faces, icy needles stinging at 25 miles an hour.
We were half frozen, our eyes burned, but you couldn't complain. The Germans weren't going to wait for us to warm up.
After days of searching, they reached an infantry roadblock. A firefight had just ended. A German four-man jeep team, disguised as Americans, had been stopped. They didn't know the password, and the infantry did not hesitate. A bazooka ended it all. When Frank and Team 66 rolled up, the scene was still raw. The jeep sat wrecked. The four Germans lay dead beside it, dressed like Americans, but frozen in betrayal.
We searched their bodies. All they carried were stolen dog tags, some explosives, and maps, but nothing we could really use. No secrets, no intelligence.
It was a brutal reminder that in war, the enemy doesn't always come at you head on. Sometimes he looks like a friend, wears your uniform, and waits for you to wave him through. As the Allies pushed deeper into Germany, Frank's interrogation team followed close behind the infantry. Their job: screen prisoners, look for intelligence, and identify personality targets, men who might face trial as war criminals. In Frankfurt, Germany, Frank was ordered to question a captured two-star general. He was 19, a private, and Jewish.
They brought him in, and he stood straight at attention in front of me. The name he gave was August Wilhelm.
The name struck like lightning. Frank's German schooling came back instantly. This wasn't just any general. It was Prince August Wilhelm, once second in line to the German throne and son of Kaiser Wilhelm II. Here he was, standing before a Jewish-American private first class in US uniform. Once a prince of Germany, now just a captured Waffen-SS general.
I couldn't believe it. I was the lowest of the low, just a private with a stripe torn from my sleeve, and here I was, face to face with royalty who had become a Nazi.
For Frank, the irony cut deeper than most. His family had fled Germany just before the war, escaping the tightening grip of anti-Semitism. Now, here he stood, a boy whose family once ran from German power, interrogating the son of a man who could have been emperor.
I couldn't believe it. My family had fled Germany with nothing, and now here I was, 19 years old, looking the Kaiser's son in the eye.
Frank didn't waste a second. He went straight to his captain.
I told him we've got a big one, the son of the Kaiser.
That was the end of Frank's interrogation. The prisoner was whisked away at once. But the image stayed burned in Frank's memory. A Jewish immigrant son, 19 years old, interrogating German royalty turned Nazi officer. A reversal so sharp, it felt like history itself had shifted in that room. By the spring of 1945, the war was grinding to its bloody end. Frank's interrogation team had developed a tactic that worked better than any threat or trick.
We never had to press the German soldiers too hard. All we had to say was, if you don't talk, we'll hand you over to the Russians. That terrified them. They'd do anything to stay out of Soviet hands.
To the Germans, captivity under the Americans meant food and survival. Captivity under the Soviets meant revenge. They knew what awaited them if they fell into Russian hands. That fear haunted every prisoner Frank met. Weeks later, his unit reached the Elbe River in Magdeburg, Germany. On the opposite bank, Soviet troops. The two great armies had finally met. Frank's captain received orders to cross and make contact. They couldn't find a Russian speaker, so he turned to Frank.
I told him, Captain, I only know one word of Russian, tovarish, friend. He said, I don't care. Carry the map.
They commandeered a boat and pushed across the river. Halfway over, the captain rose to his feet, making sure the Russians saw the American uniform. On the far bank, the reception was overwhelming. Soviet soldiers hugged them, kissed them, hoisted them into the air. 19-year-old Frank offered vodka, handed cigarettes, celebrated like a brother in arms. At the time, it felt like pure camaraderie. But weeks later, Frank realized the deeper truth.
The Germans had brutalized the Russians, and the Russians took revenge every chance they got. No German wanted to be captured by them. They were terrified of it.
And that's why the Soviets reacted the way they did. When they saw the Americans crossing the river, they knew what it meant. The fighting in that sector was over. The Germans wouldn't be coming for them anymore. They had survived the war. They weren't celebrating the visitors. They were celebrating the fact that they were still alive. After World War II, Frank didn't walk away from service. He went on to build a 35-year army career, eventually retiring as colonel in 1978. But rank wasn't the legacy he cared about most. Decades later, he carried his wartime memories into a different mission, teaching others what hate can do and what survival demands. He became a volunteer at the US Holocaust Memorial Museum, speaking to students, soldiers, and visitors from all around the world.
I owed the United States. They took my family in when we fled Germany, so whatever payback I could give, I had to do it.
He didn't stop at survival. He made it his duty to remember, to warn, to teach people what hate can become when it goes unchecked. From escaping Nazi Germany as a boy, to surviving a phosphorus grenade accident, to interrogating the Kaiser's son, and to crossing the Elbe River and being embraced by the Soviets. Frank didn't just witness history, he carried it forward.